Earlier this week, President Trump said that he actually ordered his attorneys to conduct a review of Smithsonian museums in D.C. He's calling it an effort to make them less woke. He said that they focus too much, quote, on how bad slavery was.
Hello, 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 and welcome to the channel. My name is Ralph, and today we're going to be talking about President Trump and his dislike of the way the Smithsonian goes about presenting slavery here in America. I don't entirely disagree with him because I think the way that it's taught is really one-sided, and it results in people not even realizing that slavery existed before America, stuff like that. Let's go ahead and take a look.
What more do you know about this effort, and how are his comments being received?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are surprised to be relitigating the issue of slavery in 2025. I think a lot of museums are eyeing another part of that announcement, which compares this investigation, if you want to call it that, to the way that the Trump administration has looked at activities at various universities around the country, all of which that have ended in multi-million-dollar settlements. A lot of big universities around the country put under the microscope by the Trump administration, forced to defend their hiring practices, defend the way they teach, defend the content of their programs, and in many cases, essentially pay a financial settlement to get the federal government off their back. If that's the future for museums, it could become a very expensive proposition, although most museums aren't funded in quite the same way that these universities are. So it's not at all clear where this is going to go, but at least in Washington, I think we could be looking at a pretty expensive battle ahead.
Yeah, a lot of threads to follow there. Garrett Hake in D.C., thank you so much.
All right, so there you have it. Trump looking to start a fight with the museums over the way that they are presenting American slavery, the history of it, to the American public. Also, schools with their hiring practices and the way they go about teaching these things. And I can't say that I disagree in any way, shape, or form. As I think I mentioned in the intro, I've actually met people that didn't even realize slavery existed prior to colonization. Um, People that legitimately did not realize that slavery was a practice anywhere else in the world prior to the Atlantic slave trade. And that is an obvious failure of the American education system when when things are so hyper focused on not only a nation, but such a small subset of a nation's history that is the only history they think there is concerning that particular issue. Of course, the issue being slavery. In this instance, uh, it's just fucking wild. I get into an argument with this cat. I argued with him for like 2 fucking days, telling me he says America started slavery. I said, what are you talking about, bro? You ever read the Bible? I'm not a Christian, but I'm like, you ever read the Bible? He said, yeah. I said, why did the Jews leave Egypt? Uh, I said, because of slavery. They were enslaved 2,000 years ago. How old do you think America was? Like, this shit was founded, well, in America, but the New World, as it was called, was discovered by Europeans in the late 1400s. So, I'm like, let's do the math, buddy. And this cat got so fucking mad at me. He's a mixed fella. He's young. He's like 22, but he got super fucking mad at me for like 2 days. We're going at it. And I don't want to hear none of your bullshit no more, Ralph. Blah 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 blah. He come in the third day, and he says, "Hey man, hey, I gotta apologize to you." He said, "I went home last night, and I was talking to my mom, telling her, telling her about what you were saying and shit." And she looked at him and she said, "Well, he's right." Like, his mom knew. His mom knows that slavery has existed forever and always in history. But for some reason, this young man did. This young man that graduated from the American school system thought that slavery was purely an American practice in history. Fucking wild. Um, yeah, and it's the way that they emphasize it so much. It seems like it's not even to educate at this point. It seems like it's purely there to shame, which is in itself wild, because how are you going to be ashamed for something people that you've never met did nearly 200 years ago? No one alive today has ever seen American slavery. No one alive today has ever been a slave. No one ever in America has ever been a slave holder that is alive today. It's a practice that has been dead, long gone in this country, on this continent, really on this hemisphere, essentially outside of parts of South America, where people are most definitely being enslaved in some way, shape, or form by drug cartels and things of that sort. And then, of course, the human trafficking. But there are no labor slaves. The closest thing that you could get to a labor slave would be an illegal immigrant working for a lower than average wage, which ironically is exactly what the Democrats are supporting. It's really not ironic. It only seems ironic in the modern context, or the way that people, or at least that Democrats, view their own party. Really, it's just par for course. They, of course, party of slavery, Jim Crow, KKK. Um, this has always been their shtick. They've just gotten better at hiding the shtick behind a curtain to manipulate the very people that they see themselves as better than, into supporting their own oppressors. Um, it's really sad, and it's the way that they teach slavery is largely contributes to that. Um, you've got the majority of the black population here in America voting Democrat when it was Democrats that fought to keep them enslaved, and it was Democrats that passed Jim Crow laws, when it was Democrats that started the KKK, Democrats that started and then placed Planned Parenthood in majority minority communities, because that's who they want getting abortions. That's why they have so much activism in minority communities. You know, they're not they're not nearly as active in white communities, much less wealthy white communities. Um, it's all a part of the plan, the Democratic plan, to pull the wool over the eyes of individuals, to make them think that they are the party of morality, when in fact they have been the party of immorality since the very founding. Um, to get back to slavery, though, people seem to view today, at least on the left, slavery as a wholly American sin, not realizing that there's something like 1 million Uyghur Muslims enslaved right now in China, producing the goods that they consume, that we all consume, in all honesty. Um, but they never even think about that. They never even consider it. And that's just more proof that this is all performative. Because if it was slavery, the enslavement of people, the mistreatment of people that they actually cared about, they would be, instead of harping on their fellow Americans about things that their fellow Americans had nothing to do with, they would be advocating for um, people that are still currently enslaved today. Today. Not 200 years ago, not 30 years ago. This is not African apartheid. Right now, today, in in China, there are a minimum of 1 million Uyghur Muslims imprisoned without legitimate charge and enslaved, forced to work to build, to create American products for American corporations so that they can sell them at the maximum profit. Nikes, Apple, I mean, it's probably everybody, to be perfectly honest with you. But most of these leftists, they either aren't aware because they can't be bothered to think about the 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 hypocrisy of their own actions, or they willfully ignore it for the same reason. That and because they don't want to give up the comfort that they have as an American consumer. They know in order to get those products, that are cool, they've got to accept that or ignore it. And that's the sick thing too, is like you're gonna pay all this money for a pair of Nikes produced by an enslaved Uyghur Muslim in China just for the just for the brand, just for the status of owning a Nikes, or because you like Mac, you like their operating system, you like Apple, you think that their design is really sleek, you enjoy the aesthetic. These people are willing to accept slavery for their own comfort, and that's proof positive. And people will act like it's impossible to avoid these products, and it's not. I mean, there are services, there are apps that you can download on your phone that will allow you to avoid purchasing items produced um, in China or through slave labor. But that's too much of an inconvenience for these people. So while they'll sit here and they'll cry and cry and cry about slavery and how America is so fucking evil for slavery, meanwhile, they are the benefactors of slavery to a greater degree than most Americans ever were. We're talking about less than 2% of the population. And on top of that, there was never even slavery in the North. Like, people they completely ignore the fact that half this country never had slavery, and in fact sacrificed their lives, to put an end to the institution, and the majority white lives. But somehow the American system's inherently racist, and everyone that isn't melanated is guilty for the sins of less than 2% of the population 200 fucking years ago. And on top of that, there were black slave owners. There were Native American slave owners. The fact that it was so predominantly one race is purely due to circumstance. That's where slaves were being sold out. If slaves were being sold out of Japan 200 years ago, it'd be Japanese right now crying about the horrors that were committed. Now, I maybe could have picked a better example because of the concentration camps during World War II. But you get the idea. Let's fucking if slaves were coming from Spain 300 years ago, it'd be people of Spanish descent running around. Ah, bah, 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 bah. It just so happens that at that time, when the Atlantic slave trade was developed, that the place that was selling slaves was Africa. And it was other Africans too. I mean, it's not like slave traders were going off into Africa, into the fucking jungle, tracking people down and kidnapping them. They were purchasing already enslaved people from other black Africans. And the shit's still going on today over there on the continent. I mentioned the other day, what is it, Mauritania or Eritrea still has slavery to this day. All right, folks. So that's going to be it for this episode. I've got plenty more to say, but I don't want to keep you too long on a single video. I did, though, happen to, if you notice, I don't have the hat on anymore. I did happen to check, and unfortunately, I don't know if you can see it. This was made in China. Patriotic. Patriotic one size. Made in China. It just seems kind of gross now that I think about it. So I'm gonna have to find another 1776 hat that was made here in America. Um, but yeah, like, share, subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you think American patriotic paraphernalia made in China is kind of a contradiction. Hope to see you tomorrow or maybe later today. Later, Gators.